Good day, everyone. I'm recording using my iPad and I'm still getting used to it. So I hope you understand why this will look a little bit awkward. Before we begin today's discussion, let's briefly recall where are we in the last lecture journey. In our previous sessions, we already discussed the research design, identified the population and locale of the study, and carefully selected our sampling techniques. These are all essential parts of research planning because they help us determine who we are studying, where the study is happening, and how we will gather participants and data. Now that we have completed those foundational steps, we are ready to move forward to one of the most important stages of research, analyzing the data we collect. Today, we will focus specifically on coding and analyzing qualitative data. This part of research helps us make sense of interviews, observations, and open ended responses. Unlike quantitative research that uses numbers and statistics, qualitative research deals with words, meanings, and experiences. Our goal today is to understand how researchers organize, interpret, and present qualitative data in a clear and meaningful way. By the end of the session, you should be able to understand how coding works and how qualitative data becomes useful research. Let's begin first by sharing my slide. Uh, There, coding or analyzing data. So in this session, we are going to focus on coding, which is a very important process in analyzing qualitative data. When we say qualitative data, we are referring to information that comes from interviews, observations, journals, or even open-ended responses. Unlike quantitative data, as we said, that deals with numbers and statistics, qualitative data, as we said, deals with words, meanings, and experiences. Because of this, we need a systematic way to organize and interpret all the information we gather. This is where coding comes in. Coding helps researchers identify patterns, ideas, and themes from large amount of textual or narrative data. Think of coding as a way of labeling or tagging important parts of your paper. That way, we are able to understand what participants are saying. For example, if several participants talk about stress, time management, or motivation, we group those responses into categories. And this makes it easier to see connections and develop meaningful conclusions. In short, coding allows researchers to transform raw data into organized findings that answer the research question. Now that we understand the general focus of our session, let us first clarify the difference between data analysis and data interpretation. By the way, I'm recording in my clinic, and yes, this is my personal clinic, and that's why you'd see there's just I'm just alone. I'm duty on today. So let's begin by understanding two important terms, data analysis and data interpretation. Data analysis refers to the researcher's attempt to summarize and organize the collected data. In simple terms, this is where we arrange, sort, and examine all the information we gathered from interviews, observations, or documents. We look at the data carefully to identify patterns, similarities, and differences. The goal of data analysis is to make the data more manageable and easier to understand. On the other hand, data interpretation uh, is more complicated. Uh, Data interpretation um is about finding meaning in the data. After organizing and analyzing the information, the researcher needs to ask, what does this mean? Or what can we learn from this? Interpretation goes beyond simply summarizing. It involves the explanation, explaining the significance of the findings. And in research, the way analysis and interpretations are done may differ between quantitative and qualitative traditions. Quantitative research focuses on numbers and statistical results, while qualitative research focuses on meanings, experiences, and deeper understanding. Now that we understand the difference between analyzing and interpreting data, let us move to the next idea, data analysis during collection. Many people think that data analysis only happens after all the data has been collected. However, in qualitative research, analysis actually begins during data collection. This means that while the researcher is conducting interviews, observing participants, or gathering documents, they're already thinking about what the data means. They continuously reflect on the information they receive to ensure that what they are collecting is relevant and even useful to the study. As researchers collect data, we need to understand that we should ask important questions such as, how will I make sense of this data? Why do participants behave this way? Why does this response mean? What new ideas are emerging? These questions help guide the researchers in gathering meaningful data and avoiding unnecessary information. By analyzing data as it is being collected, researchers can adjust their questions, explore new insights, and deepen their understanding of the topic. Now that we know analysis can happen during data collection, let us look at what happens after data collection. No? Once all the data have been collected, the researcher begins a more structured and detailed process of analysis. One common way of analyzing qualitative data after collection is by following three iterative or repeated steps. The first step is becoming familiar with the data. This involves reading the data carefully and even repeatedly, and researchers also write notes or memos about their observations and initial thoughts. This process helps them fully understand the context, participants, situations describe the data in the data. The second step is examining the data in depth to provide detailed descriptions of the setting, participants, um, and activities. The third has something to do actually with categorizing or a coding piece of data, then grouping them into themes. These steps are not done just once. They are repeated several times as the researcher gains deeper understanding. So palalim na palalim, no? Through this process, the researcher gradually identifies patterns and meanings that answer the research question. Now that we understand the basic steps after data collection, let us move to a more detailed look at summarizing qualitative data. So, what is that summarizing that we are talking about here? So at this stage, the researcher begins summarizing the data. Summarizing is important because the first time you read your data is when you see it with fresh eyes. This is your opportunity to notice initial impressions, recurring ideas, and interesting statements from participants. Researchers start by reading and writing memos about their field notes or interview transcripts. These memos help capture thoughts, reflections, and possible meanings behind the responses. It's like having a conversation with your own data to understand what it's trying to tell you. After reading and even memoing, the researcher moves to describing and classifying the data. This involves developing clear descriptions of the participants, settings, and situations in the study. Then the data is broken down into smaller analytical units. These units are grouped into categories and later into themes. Through summarizing, describing, and classifying the research transforms large amounts of raw data into organized information that can be analyzed more deeply. Now that we understand how qualitative data is summarized, we can now explore different data analysis strategies used by different researchers. And let's look at what these different data analyses are. In qualitative research, there are several strategies that researchers use to analyze data effectively. One of the most common strategies is identifying themes. Researchers begin by looking at the big picture and listing themes that emerge from the data. These themes often come from events, ideas, or responses that keep repeating. When certain experiences or opinions appear frequently in the data, they are likely important and worth exploring further. Identifying themes help researchers focus on meaningful patterns rather than getting lost in too much information. Another important strategy is coding qualitative data. Coding helps reduce large amounts of data into manageable form. Researchers write notes or labels on pieces of data and then group similar ideas together and they become themes. Some research start with predetermined categories based on theory or literature, while others allow categories to emerge from the data itself. Both approaches are valid and depend on the research design. The goal is always the same: to organize data in a way that reveals insights and answers research questions. Now that we understand common data analysis strategies, let us look at how we can make coding more manageable. No? How to make coding more manageable. Coding quantitative data can sometimes feel overwhelming, especially when you are dealing with long interviews or even large amount of text. This is why researchers use simple techniques to make coding more manageable. One helpful strategy is to make photocopies or duplicate copies of the original data. This allows you to highlight freely, underline, write notes without worrying about damaging the original document. After that, researchers read through all the data carefully and attach working labels to blocks of text. These labels represent initial ideas or categories that are found in the responses. Another useful technique is the cut and paste method. Researchers cut out sections of text and copy them into index cards and then group similar ideas together. By physically organizing the data, it becomes easier to see patterns and connections. You can actually use a post-it. Researchers then revisit these group ideas to check if the cluster still makes sense or needs supplements. Coding is done just once. It is a continuous process of reviewing and refining. These simple steps help researchers stay organized and focused while analyzing qualitative data. Now that we know how to make coding manageable, we can now explore other strategies that can help us analyze qualitative data further. What are these other strategies? Aside from coding and grouping data into themes, researchers can use another strategies to better understand qualitative data. One useful strategy is concept mapping. Concept mapping helps researchers visually organize ideas and show relationships between different concepts. By creating diagrams, uh, or maps, researchers can easily see how themes are connected and how one idea may influence another. This makes complex data easier to understand and even explain. Another helpful approach is analyzing antecedents and consequences. This means examining what happened before a certain event and what happened after. For example, if a researcher is studying absenteeism among students, they may look at factors like illness or school safety as possible causes. They can then analyze the effects of absenteeism on academic performance or social skills. Researchers may also display their findings visually through charts, tables, diagrams, or to make the results even clearer. Now that we have explored different strategies for analyzing qualitative data, you might be wondering, what do we actually do with all this data? No? So what do we do with all this data we're talking about? At this point, you might be wondering what researchers actually do with all the qualitative data they collect. After conducting interviews, observations, and surveys, researchers often end up with a large amount of information. Just like quantitative research has many statistical tests, qualitative research also has many options for analyzing and interpreting data. The challenge is not the lack of data, but how to make sense of everything in an organized and meaningful way. Qualitative data analysis involves selecting appropriate strategies that will help answer the research questions. Researchers must carefully review, organize, and even interpret data so that important insights can be identified. The goal is to transfer raw data into meaningful findings that can be clearly explained to others. With proper coding, categorizing, and interpretation, even a large amount of qualitative data can be managed effectively. Now that we understand the importance of handling qualitative data, let's look at what this session will be about. Yes, I've only introduced the session. So the session is designed to provide you with a step-by-step guide for analyzing qualitative data. Many researchers, especially beginners, feel overwhelmed when they first encounter large amounts of interview scripts, observation notes, and even written responses. That is why this lesson focuses on helping you understand how to apply strategies for data analysis, interpretation, and reporting. By learning these steps, you will be able to move from raw data to meaningful research findings in a clearer and even systematic way. Throughout this session, we will explore different techniques that qualitative researchers use to organize and interpret their data. We will also learn how to present findings in a way that is understandable and meaningful to readers. Remember, the purpose of qualitative data analysis is not just to collect information, but to make sense of it and communicate what it means. By the end of this discussion, you should have a clear idea of how coding and even thematic analysis work in qualitative research. And to make this process easier to understand, let us look at qualitative data as something similar to cleaning a closet. let's look at this relatable comparison: cleaning a closet and managing qualitative data analysis. Managing qualitative data is very similar to organizing your belongings in a closet. When your closet is messy and full, it can be difficult to find what you need. In the same way, when researchers collect a lot of qualitative data, it can feel overwhelming at first. There may be interview transcripts, notes, and observations that need to be organized and understood. Just like cleaning a closet, qualitative data analysis requires sorting, organizing, and deciding what is important. You cannot simply leave everything as it is. You must go through each item and determine where it belongs. By using this comparison, we can see that analyzing qualitative data is not as complicated as it seems. It simply requires a systematic and organized approach to make everything meaningful and even useful. Now that we have this simple analogy in mind, let us look more closely at the actual process by exploring the steps involved in organizing qualitative research. So what are the steps that we're talking about? It's actually the same process. Continuing with our closet example, the process of qualitative data analysis follows similar steps. First, you take everything out of the closet. In research, this means gathering all your raw data, such as interview transcripts, observation notes, and even documents. Next, you sort everything and decide what to keep and what to remove. Some data may not be relevant to your research questions, so you need to identify which information is useful and which is not. After sorting, you begin organizing the remaining items into subgroups or smaller categories. In qualitative research, this step is similar to chunking and even coding data. You group similar responses together and form clusters or categories. Finally, you arrange everything in a way that makes sense and is easy to understand. This final step represents interpretation and presentation of findings. Just like organizing a closet for better use, researchers organize data to make it meaningful and useful for answering research questions. Now that we understand this simple step-by-step analogy, let us look at four basic steps of qualitative data analysis. So what are these four basic steps? All qualitative data analysis generally follows four basic steps. The first step is raw data management, also known as data cleaning. In this step, researchers prepare and organize all the collected data, and this includes transcribing interviews, arranging observation notes, and ensuring that all data are complete and ready for analysis. Proper organization at this stage is important because it makes the entire analysis process easier and even more systematic. The second step is data reduction, which involves chunking and coding the data. Here, researchers break down large amounts of information into smaller, meaningful parts and assign labels or codes. The third step is data interpretation, where researchers examine coded data to identify patterns and themes. Finally, the fourth step is data representation, which involves presenting the findings through narratives, tables, charts, or themes. And this tells the story of the data and makes it understandable to others. Now that we know the four basic steps, let us visualize the process through the data analysis spiral. No? This is the data analysis spiral. No? So qualitative data analysis is not straight one-time process. Instead, it is described as a spiral. And this means that researchers move back and forth between different types and steps as they analyze their data. For example, while reading the data, a researcher might already begin coding. While coding, they might return to the raw data to check meaning or clarity responses. This continuous movement helps researchers gain deeper understanding and even ensure that no important information is actually missed. The spiral is also shows that qualitative analysis is a gradual process of discovery. Researchers do not immediately see all the themes or meanings in the data. Instead, they repeatedly review and reflect on the data until clearer patterns emerge. And each time they go through the spiral, their understanding becomes deeper and more refined. This flexible and reflexive process allows qualitative research to capture rich and meaningful insights. Now that we understand the ideal of the data analysis spiral, let us look at another visualization of this process. And here is what you see in Data Spiral 2. This slide presents another version of the data analysis spiral based on Creswell's model. It shows that qualitative data analysis involves several interconnected activities such as organizing data, reading and memoing, describing, classifying, interpreting, and representing the data. These steps are not done in a strict order. Instead, researchers move back and forth between them as they gain new insights. For example, while interpreting data, a researcher might go back to reading transcripts again to confirm an idea or identify additional patterns. This spiral model emphasizes that qualitative data analysis is a continuous and reflective process. Researchers constantly revisit their data, refine their codes, and develop clearer themes. This process helps ensure that interpretations are accurate and grounded in the data. It also reminds us that qualitative research requires patience and careful attention to detail. Each step builds upon the previous one until meaningful findings are developed. Now that we understand the overall process through the data analysis spiral, let us move to the first major step, raw data management. The first step in qualitative data analysis is raw data management. This refers to the process of preparing and organizing all the raw data into meaningful units that can be analyzed. Raw data may come in different forms, such as interview recordings, written responses, observation notes, images, or even videos. Before analysis can begin, these forms of data must be organized properly. For example, audio recordings are usually transcribed into written text, and images or videos may be arranged into folders or labeled according to themes. During this step, researchers also review the data to determine which parts are relevant and useful to the study. Not all collected data will be necessary, so some information may be set aside if it does not support the research objectives. Proper raw management data ensures that the researcher works only with meaningful and organized information. This makes the next step of analysis easier and even more efficient. Now that we understand how raw data is prepared and organized, let us examine a sample raw data in the next slide to see how to process something that looks like this. This slide presents an example of raw qualitative data taken from an interview transcript. When researchers collect qualitative data, they often gather long responses from participants that include experiences, opinions, and even feelings. At first glance, this type of data may look overwhelming because it contains many sentences and ideas. Some parts may be very useful to the research, while others may not be directly related. This is why researchers must carefully read through the transcript and identify which portions are relevant to their study. And as you examine the sample, you will notice that some of the parts of the transcript may be considered unusable or less relevant, And researchers must decide which statements truly answer the research questions and which ones do not. This helps us in narrowing down the data and focusing only on the meaningful information. By reviewing raw data closely, researchers begin to see possible patterns and ideas that can later be coded and grouped into themes. Now that we have seen an example of raw data, let's move now to the next step of data reduction, where we begin to organize and simplify data for analysis. After organizing the raw data, the next step is data reduction. Data reduction simply means simplifying and focusing the data so that it becomes easier to analyze. Researchers begin by reading the data several times to fully understand it, and this process is called immersion because the researcher becomes deeply familiar with the content by repeating or repeatedly reading the transcripts or notes, the researcher begins to notice important ideas, repeated words, and meaningful statements that relate to the research questions. During this stage, researchers also write notes in the margins, which is known as memoing. Memoing helps capture initial thoughts, reflections, and possible interpretations of the data. As the researcher continues reading and memoing, preliminary categories begin to emerge. And these categories help group similar ideas together, a process which we already identified as chunking. Data reduction allows researchers to move from a large amount of data, information, into smaller, meaningful groupings that can later be coded and even analyzed. Now that we understand the first phase of data reduction, let us explore the concept of winnowing and how researchers refine their data further. So, winnowing. After becoming familiar with your data, the researcher begins the process of winnowing. Winnowing means narrowing down and refining the data to focus only on what is important and useful for the study. At this stage, the researcher develops an initial sense of which parts of the data are relevant and begins forming general categories. This helps in organizing the data into meaningful sections that can also be analyzed further. During winnowing, researchers create a preliminary set of codes, and these codes are labels that represents ideas or concepts found in the data. Similar pieces of information are grouped together into clusters based on shared meanings or characteristics. From these clusters, the researcher can develop an initial code list or master codebook. This codebook serves as a guide for organizing and analyzing the data consistently. Winnowing, therefore, helps transform large and complex data into manageable, meaningful units, and which will prove helpful in the conduct of the research. Now that we understand how data is narrowed down and organized, let's look at examples of chunks and clusters. This slide shows how raw interview data can be divided into chunks and then grouped into clusters. When researchers read through qualitative data, they begin identifying sections of text that express similar ideas. These sections are called chunks. For example, one part of the transcript may discuss career goals, another may focus on personal struggles, and another may describe changes in identity. Each of these sections can be marked with different colors or labels to make them easier to recognize. So once the chunks are identified, the researcher groups similar chunks together to form clusters. Clusters represent broader categories that connect related ideas. For instance, all statements about career advancements can be grouped into one cluster, while statements about personal challenges can form another. By organizing chunks into clusters, researchers start to see patterns and relationships in the data, and this process prepares the data for recoding. where labels and meanings are assigned to the group. N- Now that we understand how chunks and clusters are formed, let us proceed to the next step, data reduction through coding. I will move a bit because the cafe downstairs have turned on their. I will go inside one of our consultation rooms. Up, sorry. I, I okay. So we're now looking at data collect reduction cluster 2. No? Uh, so after grouping data into chunks and clusters, the next step in data collection is developing codes. Developing coding is the process of assigning labels or names to groups of data that share similar meanings, especially when researchers notice that several chunks or information express the same idea. They place them they place them so you group them together into clusters and assign a code that represents that idea. For example, statements about time pressure, family responsibilities, and workload might be grouped under a coding like time management or personal challenges. Coding, we need to understand, does not happen only once. It usually goes through several cycles. In the beginning, researchers may have many possible codes, but as they continue analyzing the data, they refine and reduce them. Codes are organized into a code book, which serves as a guide for consistent analysis. Through this process, the researcher moves from broad groupings to more specific and meaningful codes that help explain uh, the data gathered. Coding allows the researcher to transform organized data into insights that can answer research questions. Now that we understand how coding develops from cluster, let us take a closer look at the coding process and how codes are refined. Let's make this. So the coding process usually begins with a large number of possible categories. During the first stage of coding, a researcher may identify many ideas from the data, sometimes as many as 20 or 30 categories. At this point, the goal is not to limit ideas, but to capture as many meaningful concepts as possible. Each category represents a possible pattern or theme found in the responses of participants. This initial stage helps the researcher explore the data openly and identify all relevant insights. As analysis continues, the researcher gradually reduces and refines these codes. Similar codes may be combined while others may be removed if they are not significant. This process may happen more than once until the final set of codes is clear, organized, and meaningful. The final code should be mutually exclusive, meaning each piece of data fits clearly into one category and they should cover all relevant information. This refinement ensures that coding systems is accurate and useful for interpreting data. Now that we understand how codes are developed and even refined, let us explore the different types of codes researchers use, starting with a priori and in vivo codes. In qualitative research, codes can come from different sources, and one type is called a priori codes. It's, I'm pre-recording after lunch, so my eyes are drooping and dropping. These are codes that are developed before analyzing the data. They are usually based on existing theories, literature, and research questions of the study. For example, if a study focuses on student motivation, the researcher might also expect codes such as intrinsic motivation or extrinsic motivation. These predetermined codes guide the researchers in organizing the data according to known concepts or even frameworks. Another type is called in vivo codes, which comes directly from the participants' own words. These codes are created during data analysis and are based on local phrases or expressions used by participants. For instance, if a participant says, I like magic, that exact phrase may be used as a code because it reflects a meaningful experience. In vivo coding helps preserve the authentic voice of the participants and allow the teams to emerge naturally from the data. Both a priori and in vivo coding are useful and can be used together depending on the research approach. Now that we understand where codes come from, let us explore the different levels of coding. So before we went, I sorry, you will not know pala that I went on break. So let's look at coding levels. No? So coding in qualitative research happens at different levels. And each level helps the researcher move from simple descriptions to deeper understanding. The first level is descriptive coding, where the researcher simply summarizes what the data is about. For example, if a participant talks about difficulties in balancing work and school, the descriptive code might be work life balance. This level focuses on identifying and labeling what is happening in the data. The next level is interpretative or pattern coding, where the researcher begins to look for meanings and relationships between codes. Instead of just describing the data, the researcher asks, what does this mean? Why is this important? This deeper level of coding helps explain patterns and connections. Some researchers also describe coding as moving from open coding to eggshell or selective coding, or from first cycle to second cycle coding. Regardless of the terms used, the goal is the same: to move from simple descriptions toward meaningful explanations and even emerging theories. Now that we understand the different levels of coding, let us look at the sample coding in practice in the next slide. This slide shows an example of how raw qualitative data is transformed into codes. From the interview transcript, the researcher identifies important ideas such as career goals, personal struggles, and changes in identity. These challenges are first grouped into chunks and then assigned specific codes. For instance, statements about wanting a doctorate for promotion may be coded as career goals or career advancement. Statements about doubt or lack of time may be coded as self-doubt or time management. This process shows how large amounts of text can be broken down into smaller, meaningful labels. Through coding, the researcher begins to organize the data systematically. Each code represents a concept that appears in the participants' responses. By grouping similar codes together, researchers can identify broader categories and eventually themes. This step is important because it transforms raw text into structured information that can be analyzed more deeply. Coding makes it easier to compare responses, identify patterns, and answer research questions effectively. Now that we have seen how coding is applied to actual data, let us now revisit and deepen our understanding of coding levels and progressions again. So let's revisit that, no? So this slide reminds us that coding is not just a one-time activity, but a continuous and progressive process. Researchers move from simple descriptive coding to deeper interpretative and pattern coding. At the beginning, coding focuses on identifying basic ideas found in the data. But as the researchers review the data repeatedly, they begin to see relationships between codes and start developing even broader meanings. This gradual movement helps transform raw data into meaningful insights. Researchers may also describe this progression as moving from open coding to eggshell and selective coding, or from first cycle to second cycle coding, regardless of the terms used. The goal is always to move from describing the data to explaining it. As coding progresses, connections between categories become clearer and patterns begin to emerge. And this helps the researcher develop themes and eventually answer the research questions more effectively. Now that we understand how coding develops over time, let's examine the coding progression from descriptive to interpretative to pattern coding. No? So this is what happens there. This slide demonstrates how coding progresses from simple descriptions to deeper interpretations and patterns. At the descriptive level, the researcher labels basic ideas found in the data. For example, codes such as career goals, self-doubt, identity, shift, simply describe what participants are talking about. These descriptive codes help organize the data and provide a clear overview of the main topics discussed. As analysis continues, the researcher moves to interpretative and pattern coding. Here, the researcher begins to ask deeper questions such as what these ideas mean, how are they connected, and the like. For example, career goals and personal struggles may be interpreted as a strong desire for professionals' growth despite challenges. Or from these interpretations, broader patterns or themes emerge, such as personal achievement or identity transformation. This progression allows the researcher to move from basic labeling to meaningful explanation of the data. Now we understand how coding develops into patterns and themes. Let us now move to the next step, data interpretation and theme development. After coding the data, the next step is data interpretation and identifying themes. At this stage, the researcher examines all the coded data and begins grouping similar codes together into broader categories. These categories eventually form themes. Themes represent the main ideas or meanings that emerge from the data and help answer the research questions. For example, codes about self-doubt, time pressure, and family responsibilities may form a theme about personal challenges in achieving goals. Interpreting the data involves looking beyond the surface and understanding what the themes reveal about participants' experiences. Researchers analyze how different themes are connected and what they say about the research problem. The goal is not just to list themes, but to explain their significance. Through careful interpretation, the researcher develops meaningful insights that can be used to draw conclusions and even recommendations. Now that we understand how themes are formed and coded, let us look at an example of an emergent theme. This slide provides an example of how themes emerge from coded qualitative data. After coding and clustering similar ideas, the researchers begin to identify broader meanings. For instance, statements about wanting a doctorate for career advancement may be grouped into a theme about achieving professional goals. Comments about self-doubt and lack of time may form a theme about personal struggles. Meanwhile, statements about changes in how others perceive them may lead to a theme about identity transformation. These themes summarize the deeper meanings found in participants' experiences. Developing themes help researchers answer the research questions in a clear and meaningful way. Instead of presenting raw interview responses, researchers present organized themes that reflect the shared experiences of participants. These themes provide structure and direction to the findings section of a research paper, but they also help readers understand the main insight of the study without getting lost into too much detail. Now that we have seen how teams work, uh, let us move now to data representation and tell the meaning of this story. I have to check. I think somebody went inside. So, data representation. Step 4. So, after identifying and interpreting themes in the next step, the next step is data representation. This is where the researcher presents the findings in a clear and meaningful way. Data representation involves telling the story of the research based on the themes that emerge from the analysis. Instead of simply listing codes or categories, the researcher explains what the findings mean and how they answer the research questions. This is the stage where analysis becomes a narrative that others can understand. Data representation also shows that interpretation happens continuously throughout the research process. As researchers read, code, and group the data, they are already forming interpretations. By the time they present the findings, they have developed a deeper understanding of the participants' experiences. The themes become the main structure of the story, guiding how the results are written and explained. This ensures that the research findings are meaningful and useful to the readers. Now, let's look at different types of data presentation. So there are different types of data ways researchers can present qualitative data findings. One common way is through storytelling or narrative form. In this approach, the researcher presents the results like a story, explaining participants' experiences and how teams develop from the data. This narrative may follow a chronological order, use flashbacks, or focus critical incidents that highlights important moments in the data. Storytelling helps readers clearly understand the experiences and perspectives of participants. Another way presenting data is through visual representation, and researchers may use tables, charts, figures, or diagram to show themes and relationships between ideas. Visual representation makes complex information easier to understand and help summarize key findings. Whether using narratives or visual formats, the goal of data representation is to communicate findings clearly and effectively. Researchers must present the results in a way that answers the research questions and highlight the significance of the study. Now that we know different ways to present the qualitative data, let us look at examples of how the research output may appear. No? So this is how it will look like. This slide shows an example of qualitative research findings may look like in the final research paper. After going through coding, categorizing, and identifying themes, the researcher presents the results in a structured narrative. The sample excerpt demonstrates how themes are integrated into the discussion. Instead of simply listing responses from participants, the researcher explains the shared experiences and connects them to existing theories and previous slides. Uh, or previous studies, and this makes the findings more meaningful and academically relevant. In the final presentation of results, themes becomes the main focus of the discussion. Each theme is supported by the participants' statements, interpretations, and related literature. This approach allows readers to clearly understand the significance um, of the findings and how they contribute to knowledge in the field. This final output of qualitative analysis is not just a collection of responses, but a well organized explanation of patterns and meanings found in the data. Now that we have seen how qualitative findings appear, let's examine a specific theme under discussion. This slide presents an example of how a specific theme is discussed in qualitative research. In the sample, the theme focuses on how a doctoral degree is more than just completing requirements. It represents personal, professional transformation. The participants describe their experiences in the program, explaining how each stage contributed to growth. Their statements are used as evidence to support the theme, showing how qualitative findings are grounded in actual participant experiences. When presenting these themes, researchers do more than simply state them. They explain the meaning of each theme, support it with participant quotes and interpretations, and this help readers see the connection between the raw data and the conclusions of the study. The theme discussion also connects findings to theories of previous research, making the analysis deeper and more meaningful. And through this approach, qualitative research presents a rich and detailed understanding of participants' lived experiences. So now we have arrived at completing already, technically completing already everything about this type of papers. So let me stop share, no? So, no, what happened? So as we come to the end of our discussion on coding and analyzing quantitative data, I want you to remember that qualitative research is more than just a requirement in your thesis. It's a way of understanding people, their experiences, perspectives, and stories. Through coding and analysis, we learn how to transform simple words into meaningful insights, and we move from reading responses to discovering patterns, and from identifying patterns to understanding deeper meanings. This process allows us to give voice to participants and make their experiences part of academic knowledge. Always remember that good researchers are not just collectors of data, they are interpreters of meaning. Coding helps us organize information, but interpretation helps us understand what truly matters. And as future researchers, you have the responsibility to analyze data carefully, present findings honestly, and use your research to contribute to knowledge and society. As you continue working on your own research studies, approach data analysis with curiosity, patience, and purpose. Because when you learn to see meaning in data, you also learn to see meaning in the world around you. Thank you very much for your time. And I hope this recording works. Good afternoon, good morning, or good day.